successful in the future, people will require the ability to generate creative ideas and solve problems in unique ways. Creativity and innovation are often interchanged as the same. But innovation is not creativity. Creativity is about coming up with an original idea, yet innovation is executing it into reality. New jobs will place greater emphasis on human skills, namely collaboration, communication, critical thinking, and creativity. As we turn to people who can merge between technology and humanity, how important is it for organizations like Saudi Aramco to create creative spaces such as ITRA? And I'd like to direct this question to Fatma Rashid.
Assalamu alaikum, everybody. And nice meeting you. Welcome to the session. Noor, as you know, Saudi Aramco did in the past build the industrial infrastructure, the refineries and the oil industry facilities and the roads. Also, it did build the government schools for the people of the kingdom in interest of the developing the human capital of the kingdom. Similarly, ITRA is an investment in the people of Saudi Arabia, preparing them for the future, providing them with tools, not only to survive the future, but also to contribute to the shaping of it. ITRA is focused on that. Now, understanding what are the challenges for the future, which is the fast changes, whether in the technology or in the demography or in the environment, it was very essential to go to the bases, which are the main pillars for the survival of all of the nations, if we look in the history and in the present and the future. Those pillars that ITRA focuses on are knowledge, which is the never-ending journey for curiosity and learning, and cross-cultural engagement as a tool for communication and collaboration. And most importantly, of course, is the creativity, which is the tool to be able to think, to create, and to contribute. These three pillars were the basis or the core of the mission of ITRA.
Thank you. Talking about creativity, Mohammed, a lot of the artists you present start at a very young age in their career. How do you work with them to ensure that they grow in the right direction?
Well, I don't think we can assure in any way that they're going in the right direction, but the role we want to play is providing them a platform to experiment and express themselves and interact with the public and feed off the reactions that they see in the public space with their audience to kind of mature and evolve their careers into something that they want to express and they want to tell with their work. We believe that whatever artists are saying or communicating through visual arts, it's a very important message that spearheads creativity and innovation. And if we look historically at what the Renaissance eras and beyond, you'd see that the artists of that time have spearheaded change and they've pushed boundaries, whether in social spaces or others. And the ones we are seeing today in this example are ones that are pushing the technological imaginatory boundaries. And with that, they kind of guess and test how the public reacts to them and push that forward into a direction that serves their purpose.
Ignacio, looking at the installations you have here at the Great Hall, it seems to be that the scope of an artist is beyond pure art and it goes into science, technology, and physics. How do you explain that journey?
So we are a studio that works between art and design and between nature and technology. And we're quite a big studio, or reasonably big. We're 20 people, but of course sometimes we need help from professionals in other areas or from people with different expertise. So a lot of times when we had to make an idea happen, as a previous speaker was saying, it's not just having the idea, it's making it. We need to reach out and collaborate with engineers or mechanical designers or other people that can bring this expertise to make our ideas come to life.
Wonderful. Fatma, what do we expect from people visiting destinations such as ITHRA?
I would like to imagine a setting where people will see ITHRA and the visitors will see ITHRA as a community. It's a community where they can collaborate, where they can network, when they can learn and work together to achieve something really, really big. And in everything that ITHRA offers, whether from its different components or programs, and it really try to capture two elements in every segment, whether in every corner, every place, or in every component. As you know, we have the theater, the cinema, the museum. But the one of the segments or that goes cross-section everything else is how ITHRA defines creativity, and the two dimensions of creativity it plays with, which is the creative sector, be it in the art or in the performing art, the visual art, the performing art, the publication, the literature, the architecture, or in the creative, innovative thinking and the ideation. Now, with a program like the Idea Lab, ITHRA offers a process to change those ideas and creative ideas from just ideas to being realized into a tangible result. As you know that the most challenging part of creativity is really how to come up with a product, how to bridge the gap between the idea being a dream in someone's mind to being a result and a tangible product. This process is not easy, and this is the process that we try to introduce in the Idea Lab. And the main essence of this process is really to help the participants and the visitors to walk through the process, be familiar with it. It is a process that whoever tried it, you will know it's a bit frustrating as much as it's exciting, but also sometimes it's frustrating. So it requires getting used to it. It's like being trained to do it, like a sport, to stretch the muscles of the brain. What we introduce here in this process, we all are familiar with the STEM or STEAM, right? Which is the science, the technology, the engineering, but what we introduce here is something called the asset. And asset is the intersection between art, science, technology, and the entrepreneurial attitude and the spirit. And this is what's most importantly needed to cross this gap. Now, the intersection between this all and the intersection also with different sectors is what is the spirit of Tanween as we see it now. And this is the journey where we'd like our visitors to go through, is to explore and wonder what are the intersection between different disciplines, between different sectors, and to try and experiment.
And I think, Fatma, working with you, I know that, as you mentioned, intersection is a big part of the programs at the Idea Lab. And I'd like to ask Alex, I understand you share a studio with your wife, who comes from an architectural background, and you come with an arts background. So how do you guys complement each other and work with people with different disciplines?
Yeah, so Azusa did architecture, and I came from fine art background, and what I think that offers is two very different approaches to something. So the kind of what we end up making is usually the result of kind of conversation. And I think that it's really interesting you bring up the Renaissance, because as we're in a culture that's constantly specializing, the more knowledge that we gain, the more we realize how little we know and how much more knowledge there is. So we're always opening up new disciplines. And so the arts at one point were very much combined, even with the sciences. And you look at somebody like Leonardo da Vinci, and obviously he was like an engineer, a great draftsman, all kinds of things. But now we're in a culture where you can't be everything. You need to work with specialties. And so I'd say that within our studio we do that in a very small way because we're an architect and an artist, but then much like Drift, we work with scientists, we work with engineers, we work with historians, all kinds of people, craftsmen, and I think that synthesizing is really, really important role that an artist can play now, is synthesizing the arts, the sciences, to make them engaging to the public.
Thank you. Hamad, we noticed a lot of organizations, both in the private and public sector, has developed recently to serve the creative sector. Knowing that you wear both hats, how do you see this collaboration happening?
And for starters, we're quite excited in the scene with the developments and the evolvement and the kind of more clear definitions between the players and the activators in the sector. So we're seeing that the government and the public sector taking a more active role with the incorporation of a cultural ministry, the General Cultural Authority, and the Royal Commission of Al-Ula, and different entities in the public sector that are activating and pushing forward the agenda and taking an active role in what the public sector should be looking at. And then you go further into the social initiatives and the third sector with entities like ITHRA as an initiative by Aramco, or smaller ones like the Saudi Art Council, the Jameel CSR with their creative hub in Jeddah. That's also a group of entities and initiatives that are taking an active role in an area. When we started 10 years ago with Author Gallery, there was such voids in all areas of the industry, and we had, especially in the visual performance and video art area, kind of play several roles and wear different hats. But we're seeing the scene now, whether it's specifically on the art side or in general on the creative industries, these different entities are taking a more active role, giving the creatives the possibility to interact with the commercial side of things, the social side of things, and the public sector in a way that will take their agendas forward and help them create and impact on a much profound space.
Before we open the floor for questions, I'll ask Fatma. There's a saying that jobs are for robots and life is for humans. Can people here in Saudi expect making a living out of the art industry? We know that there are a lot of Saudi talents, be it in fashion design, jewelry making, social media content developers. Do you see them making a living and moving away from the 8-to-5 job?
When we talk about the creative sector, I think it's very important to highlight the three elements in the creative sector. The first one is the economy, the value, the economical value of it. Now, the economical value of it is very big because it includes so many industries, and it includes so many also indirect industries that support it. For example, now you have the sectors like the art, the film industry, the architecture, and we have these are some of them, and the supporting industries to them, whether in the logistics and the transport and the shipping and in the communication of it and all of that. To give you just a sense of the size of this economy or industry globally, it's almost more than 2 It's more than $2,000 billion annual. That's the size of it. So it is a huge pie. Now, we look at another element of the creative sectors, which is the job creation. The job creation, because it's so inclusive, it has potential. It doesn't have an age limit. So from people as young as teenagers to as old as the most oldest senior citizens, as long as they can come up with ideas and think, they can be working in this sector. Also because of its no gender restriction, it encompasses and embraces all genders, so there are no restrictions because of the flexibility and the diversity of the background, because of the no restriction also in the education of it. You don't need to have a certificate. So you can imagine how inclusive the employment part of it. Now, to give you also a size of the employment of it, it's almost 30 million jobs created annually in this sector. Now, more than that, there is the what we call the soft power of it, the societal inspiration of it. As we all know, creativity touches our daily life, touches everything that we do, we see, we live for. So it has this sense of enhancing the quality of life and providing a lifestyle that makes people happy and comfortable, most importantly, make them proud with a sense of accomplishment. Now, this sector is very huge globally. It's still young and new in Saudi Arabia. And this is where there is the greatest potential to have it grow fast, to have it grow big, with investment in building the talents and building the local capacity of it. So in Saudi Arabia, like the rest of the world, we have the opportunity to contribute with valuable contents to the global creative sector and global culture. But most importantly, we also need to realize that with this, you don't only live creatively, but also you create a living out of it. And I see Saudi Arabia as the biggest potential of it and opportunities.
Very exciting.
May I kind of
Definitely.
say something? Thank you. Well, you've touched on two elements that I find very interesting in the creative industries, which is fashion design or product design, and then the art, contemporary or visual art side of things. And when we look at the culture or creative industries, we see ones that have immediate financial impact and a low entry point to them. The fashion design is one of them. So you make a product, and you sell it, you make money or you lose. If you're good, you eventually will succeed. If you then kind of go into more sophisticated creative industries, maybe the product design, and then things become a little tricky with production and material research. But then the more you go into the creative industry's sophistication, the end result or the object that is created might not have a function. And it will only enhance the way of life and the way we see or approach or react to life around us. So this building is a great example. We don't need such a fancy building. There is no need for it. But it's a sign of sophistication. It's a sign, it will enhance people's lives just by walking through the atrium because it's so well done and built and designed. So the thing with the creative industries and advancing with them as a nation, it really it has this amazing impact on the sophistication of the population and their expectation from life and how they react to it and their quality of life itself. So maybe the point I wanted to get to is, you can be a visual artist. Don't be discouraged if you can't sustain your life, because it might be the most challenging bit of it. But still, we are heading in the right direction. We are laying down the most exciting foundation, and we are sitting in one of the departure points. And if I may ask everyone to kind of give ITHRA, its team, a big hand of applause, because they've done something amazing for this nation.
Thank you, Mohammed. I'd like to open the floor for any questions. Please. The first row. Do we have mics?
Thank you. My name is Rahana. My question is for Fatima. You spoke very eloquently about the purpose of the Idea Lab and this whole sense of wanting to create a community where people can network and interact and develop interesting ideas together for innovation and creativity. So I'm sitting here thinking that as children, we all start with play. We start with disruption, and then we go to school. And then we spend a large part of our time in school, and then we leave school, and then we try and find that play and that creativity and that space for innovation again. So my question is, how can we put that essence that you're describing in the Idea Lab into the education system to support young people to develop those skills at a time when they are quite impressionable?
So if I understand your question correctly, you're asking how can this be implemented in education? Okay. Now, to look at education, it's an area that we need to look at it as a field where we need to be more creative as well. But education in formal, in its conventional form, wouldn't help. And this is why the support of unconventional education that comes through supporting institutes like cultural centers, like museums, like the activities that happen maybe after hours, is what could complement what happens in schools. However, I find it also part of the role of those institutes to collaborate with the schools, because the educators themselves would be very much interested to be exposed to those techniques and to these processes and implement them. So sometimes we do not need to look at changing the whole system as much as to change the attitude of an individual that can make the greatest impact on a group, or in a classroom, or in a complete school. And this is why it's sort of a responsibility to engage the educators, because when the educators adopt those styles, you do not need to change the whole curriculum for it. And this is why when we say focus on the asset, which part of it, 1/4 of it, is the entrepreneurial attitude, that's the most important thing. Sometimes we as individuals, we kind of put a lot of burden on the systematic structured environment around us to create those opportunities. But this shouldn't be the case with the fast changing technology and present and future that we're witnessing.
Thank you. Please. Can we have a mic here, please?
I have a question.
Can
please.
we hear? Yeah.
Yeah. Hello, everybody. Thank you all for your nice speeches. This is very enriching. My question is about ITHRA itself. ITHRA have been giving for the last couple of years a great platform to artists and creative people to offer their products to the wider community. This is great work. However, this is only a small part of the larger ecosystem. My question is, does ITHRA have any plans for the foreseeable future to support other aspects of the larger ecosystem, such as professional training, such as connecting them with the wider global industry, and supporting them in terms of investments and such? Thank you.
I think this is an opportunity. Maybe Mohammed, you can, yes.
I feel like it's not my area. I don't work at ITHRA. But from this previous question, أنا واحد منهم ومنكم وفيكم. Thank you. I'm a big believer of this project. And with my kind of, not an answer to your question, I'm sorry, but a kind of a comment on the previous question and this one. It's a personal observation and belief. So if you raise the expectations and if you raise the bar, then things follow. So if you have a small glass, you fill it up 100 milliliters, it's full. But if you have a bigger glass, then you have to fill it up more. So everyone heads up to that, the peak of the mountain. So when you create a project like ITHRA, you don't have to change education. There's a ministry that does that. You don't have to, employ the people. There's a labor ministry that does that. But what a project like this does is it elevates expectations. So everyone wants to, your benchmark changes. Your average elevates. And the architecture, the programs, the theaters, the movies, the floating concrete blocks and whatever, they're like, people come and say, does that exist? Really? How come? So, and then you stimulate their minds and they go back to their schools. You can't host all the students in this building, but you will host some of them who will go to their schools and tell those fascinating stories and change people's perceptions. And we've seen so many hands of people are coming for the first time. I'm coming from Jeddah and I'm going back raving about this event and coming next weekend with my family and children to have them experience this event. Not all the Jeddah students are coming, but they're going back to their schools with that elevated expectation, which we want to do at specific points. Al-Ula they're doing the same. You can't rejuvenate everything in the country, but let's help the projects that are elevating these expectations, that are changing the averages and the benchmarks and increasing them to do a better and more impactful job. And that's my 5 cents.
Time is always an issue, so we are coming towards the end of the panel. I just wanted to thank our panelists and our audience. Thank you very much.